Hello, 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 everybody. Sorry about that. Daylight savings was a real killer. That's my alarm right there. And boy, oh boy, we are late. It's supposed to start in 1 minute. Do we get a watch button? No, we do not get a watch button. So does it start in a minute or does it not? It does. Bam. Woo-wee. That daylight savings almost killed us right there. But that doesn't stop us from making it into the match. There we are. Dragothian, are you on the line with us?
I sure am. I don't get my intro that I love from you, man. It's
Oh,
it's gonna
heck.
have to go right into it.
Tell me about it. Trust me, this was not the plan. This was
Well,
not the plan, but at least we made it into the match. Huh. Give me a
yeah,
second.
well we're gonna have a good one, man. I can already tell we've got two really solid teams playing today. We've got NB1 going up against one NB8, both from the same kingdom, both from the same family of alliances. I've heard different stories about how this is going to be a friendly match, and then I've heard stories from people inside both alliances saying they're both going all out for these things. There's nothing getting held back. So I fully expect this to be a massive match between two big alliances from the same kingdom. It's going to be amazing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The crazy thing of all of this is that so many people think, as you mentioned, that any side is going to throw friendly match. I don't buy that, my man. I think that this is going to be a brawl. These are going to be two huge teams that are about to go at it.
Mhm.
I'm so excited. Can you hear by my sleepy voice that literally was woken up by something that is not an alarm? I was like, I woke up. It's 5:02 a.m. Right? I wake up at 4:45 or 4:55, and I'm like, does daylight saving apply to UTC? I'm confused. So I was like, whatever, let me just get up just in case. And bam, what do you know? Woo, that was close. But with 40 seconds remaining on this match, we're looking at two powerhouses from the same kingdom. Looking at NB1 right now, and I'm seeing two individuals missing on this lineup up on the front. Let's go take a quick peek at what's going on at the side of 1NB8. 1NB8 have what looks like a few holes in their lineup as well. Uh-oh. Are we going to see substitutions coming in? Let's keep an eye on the numbers up on the top. And while that happens, we're going to try to get on the at the same time into the other match really quickly to guarantee that everybody has the best experience possible. Keep that score down at the bottom, but that might take a little bit. With the match starting, I'm seeing 28 against 29, but four individuals ported in late, which means these are substitutions. Uh-oh, Dragothian.
All right. Well, we're 30 against 30 now, and these two alliances are so large. I don't know if substitutions are going to be too bad. These guys have been playing nonstop together for quite a while. NB1 definitely pouring their armies out from the bottom right side there. You can see it right on the screen, and jumping up to the one NB8 side, looking very similar with lots of armies just absolutely pouring out of the space. Just as a quick refresh for everybody that is watching the stream and possibly doing a little bit of learning along the way, um, there's different objectives on this map of the Ark of Osiris event, and then this being the Osiris League, which is the playoff version of that. Um, there's a bunch of different types of buildings. You got outposts, which are these first three buildings that you start to run into right as soon as you start walking out of your gate. Those can only house 500,000 players or 500,000 troops inside of them. So a little bit weaker from a defense perspective, but they do give you 30 points per minute whenever you do capture them. It takes three minutes to capture a building. Next, you've got your obelisks, which will be your top, bottom, left, and right structures that look like an obelisk on the map, and those give you 20 points per minute. But more importantly, they give you teleports, which allow you to teleport your city forward and hopefully give you a little bit better of a strategic standing when you're putting your troops forward, your cities forward, ultimately getting back to the battlefield whenever you get smashed on the battlefield or whether you want to start rallying. That's where you want to be whenever you start all that stuff. Then you've got shrines and altars. There's two different types of shrines. You've got the Shrine of War and the Shrine of Life. The Shrine of War will give you buffs as well as points per minute. So troop attack and defense plus 5%, and then 80 points per minute, which is definitely very, very good to have if you're trying to win this event, which everybody here is definitely going to be doing. Shrine of 80 points per minute as well with a 25% healing speed. To heal in this event, you do not have to use resources. It's only healing speed ups or universals if you don't have any healing speed ups left. And then finally, the most important structures in the game as far as points are concerned, 150 points per minute. There are 4 different altars, 2 different flavors, a desert and a sky. Name is the only difference. There is no points difference, but that'll give you 150 points per minute every single time you have an altar in your control. And as you can see, all the different armies are starting to spread out all over the map, trying to get in position to start taking these for their particular alliances. And we're going to start seeing the clashes start here in just a minute, Gecko.
And let's go further back just a little bit more. For those of you who are brand new to this game mode altogether, Ark of Osiris is all about points per minute. It is not about kills. It's not about who has the most power or who has the most troops, but it is about who has the most points up on the top in the center at the end of the match. The game is divided into a few different sections in which you can get yourself points and in which you can accrue a score and potentially win the match. We're not only talking about regular occupation points, which are the points Dragothian currently mentioned, each building having its own unique set of points per minute. There is also first occupation bonuses, which are as soon as a team locked in a building within their favor, it'll give them some free points off the bat. What does that mean? It means that as soon as you own a building for 3 minutes or more, sorry, that's my alarms going crazy. I mean, we're supposed to wake up right now. As soon as you hold a building for 3 minutes, it locks in your favor. And once that happens, you gain free first occupation bonuses. On top of that, you also have your constant occupation, which is what Dragothian mentioned, each building having its own points per minute gain. You also have provisioning, which is just like gathering in the regular map. You gather these caravans, which will give you points. This will cost you a troop on the open field sitting inside these tiles right here. But each caravan levels 1, 2, and 3 will give you a different amount of points. And finally, you have the game mode is named after, the Ark of Osiris. Each arc is worth a different amount of points, starting with 3,000 points and going all the way to 4,500 points in 500 points increments per arc. I don't think we've ever seen more than 4 arcs, which is a total of 15,000 points. And as the map opens up, each team is picking up their own buildings, the buildings that are part of the map that is on their side of the map. You can see the map is a mirrored map right there. And boy, oh boy, it looks like we're starting with a very evened out map, Dragothian. Both teams picking up the same exact type of buildings and hopefully looking to hold on to them for longer.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're already starting to see what it looks like when you have 2 alliances from the same kingdom and the same family of alliances play each other. It's almost like they're using the same strategy. I noticed that whenever I looked at the desert altar at the top that is currently sitting in favor of 1NB8, which is the blue team. There were some armies positioned around that desert altar from NB1. And then as soon as the 1NB8 folks started to come and surround it, all of those armies that were on the red team then moved up to the Shrine of Life and took that first, not occupation necessarily, but definitely took the actual building for now. It looks like it's going to get swarmed down here in just a little bit with Double C Minamoto probably leading. So it's not going to stay in Red's favor for too long, but just like that as well, Red just takes the Shrine of Life on the bottom. So now we're going to even up the map. Everything is 50-50 for the most part. There is a few points differential on the actual scorecard just because, again, people were able to take these buildings in different orders at different times, but this isn't really where it starts to get crazy. Once we got the even map out like we do right now there's going to be rallies, which we've got 10 rallies on the map right now, and 7 of those coming from the blue team, one NB8. It's going to be very, very fast and furious, I can already tell.
Yes, sir. And the crazy thing is, one NB8 are already aiming at buildings. They're the one of the mechanisms in this game that is most utilized is rallies. When you set your offense, you usually talk about rallies quite a bit, and it's the way to essentially send a chunk of troops either up on the field or at this on the same target. And usually you don't see rallies on cities. Usually what rallies on cities means is either a way to move marches forward or a very, very aggressive individual who is not necessarily committing the troops towards the cause. The cause, again, to win the match is points per minute. That is what you are here to get. And as you can see, the points per minute game is pretty even, as really the whole map is halved out by both sides. It's worth noticing there are 1180 total points on the map. And the reason Dragothian previously mentioned, as we're watching Michelle's rally trying to get this Desert Altar away from NB1, Michelle from 1 NB8, and the massive blue wave in this bottom Desert Altar, the most important thing to know about the map is that 600 points come from 4 Desert Altars, which means that more than half of the points per minute on the map come from 4 buildings. This is why you see the first target for most teams are these altars. They do not want to allow the other team to hold on to Desert Altars and Sky Altars, the 2 types of altars on the map, for too long. And as you also can see, NB1 committing that Wuzetian into this altar, the best garrison commander available in the game right now. It's exactly because of that, because this building is so important. They cannot allow themselves to let it fall. And with the amount of rallies going out, Dragothian, they're slowly canceling out. All the city rallies, as we mentioned, canceling out, just used to move troops forward. 1 NB8 looking very, very good early on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this Wu Zetian is definitely doing some work on all these armies surrounding it from 1 NB8, but I'm not sure if they can hold it with this many armies. I mean, just the sheer volume of armies sitting around that building, even though it's costing them quite a bit, I do believe they are going to take that Desert Altar. And at the same time, they also sent an Alex-led army down here on the bottom obelisk for NB1 too. And it looks like it wasn't really done correctly because you got an Alex primary who's an infantry commander, and there I see all kinds of archers inside of that rally. So looks like somebody sent the wrong troops, or they wanted it to be a distraction rally, so they didn't really care. But either way, they took that Desert Altar, which means that that will start to count down for the 1 NB8 team. And if you're a fan of 1 NB8, that means that you're rooting for that to go ahead and close, because they're going to start generating points from that building very, very quickly. And with all the armies that are sitting there now coming in from the side, they're going to use those armies. Very good strategy to go ahead and sandwich the NB1 players inside the Ark of Osiris area. And I wonder if I go to the other side, if they're not doing the same thing on the Shrine of War.
So looking at both Shrines of War, looks like there is a little bit of fighting happening on the red Shrine of War at the bottom, but doesn't seem like the folks in red are really on here just yet. The problem for red, the problem for NB1 is that right now the third altar in favor of 1 NB8, the folks in blue, it belongs to them for about almost a minute and 20 seconds. That is a minute and 20 seconds worth of extra points 1 NB8 are making compared to the folks in NB1, the red team. You can see the points per minute up on the center of the screen right below the total score. Keep an eye on that, as the total score is fantastic, but what determines who is winning the match is not necessarily the middle points, but also the point per minute meter down here, as it can determine how the total score will look like in a few minutes. And with 45 minutes remaining and 150 points more for blue team, as you can see, they're starting to build a very small lead, and I don't see a response here from the red team on the map just yet.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 4 rallies now about to head on out. One is marching, one's battling, and 2 are mobilizing right now. And then obviously with about 25-ish seconds left, this arc is about to pop. So we've got one NB8 doing exactly what I think they wanted to, which was starting to sandwich this one this NB1 team here. The initial folks that were coming over from the bottom lane to come in the middle have been met by NB1 forces. However, if you look at the top part of that lane, here comes one NB8 forces coming from that Shrine of War that they were attacking on the NB1 top lane. So now you've got one NB8 blue team sandwiching all these armies that are sitting in the middle. And while NB1 is doing some serious work on the top flank, I guess you would call it, from one NB8, here comes the reinforcements from the bottom to go ahead and try and clean this up and snag the arc and roll on out. And it looks like NB1 is now starting to see that and immediately starting to come back. You see all those lines coming back to the middle from NB1. They don't care about those troops at the bottom anymore. They know exactly what they're doing now. And yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely an interesting strategy. It's definitely looking like one NBH, just that little half step in front of NB1.
Yes, sir. And a quick update on the bottom bar on the second match happening. We're trying to get into that second match, but something is not working very, very well. As soon as we can get into that second match and start spectating it, we're definitely going to get that second match, of course, going on at the bottom bar like we have been doing. Going back into this match, however, it looks like the folks of red managed to slow down the pace of the guys in blue as the desert altar at the bottom goes back in favor of red. As you can see, though, the points per minute game hasn't changed just yet. It takes a full 3 minutes for the folks in red to get their points per minute back and to get their building back. The brawl is happening right now in the center, though. This Ark of Osiris, this first Ark of Osiris, worth 3,000 points, is a very good kickstart to either team to have a good advantage. If the blue team end up picking it up, it'll increase their very small, about 700, 800 point lead. But if the red team pick it up, this whole loss of one building for a few minutes, which was a crucial building, will go away, as now they'll be back in the lead. And again, in a minute or so, that building will go back in their favor and the points per minute will even up. And then once again, it's everybody's game. The Ark of Osiris is one of those game-changing events, right? It's one of those game-changing items which can either flip a match, determine who wins the match, as well as be one of those very crucial things that makes everything go back and forth for a whole hour of madness. So right now, red team trying to control it as much as possible, but blue are not going to let that happen. And right now, it is in the hands of blue, who are slowly inching it back their way. But there are too many red armies in here, Dragothian. Too much for them to contend with right now.
Quite a bit. It's definitely quite a bit. And I see, as soon as I saw all that scrum in the middle and all those red armies, I just immediately thought, well, what is the blue team doing to kind of counteract all like, just knowing that all of these armies being in the middle means they can't be elsewhere. So if it was me, I'd be after rally trying to get some of these structures. If I'm not going to get the arc, which, I mean, they still have a shot. It's not like it's a foregone conclusion, but it's definitely going to be a more difficult row for them to hoe. But you've got all these blue rallies going off. You got 5 right now at a time. One just got dropped as well. So I think they've got just enough to keep things locked up tight, does NB1, and we've got 4 more armies mobilizing, 1 marching in favor of Team 2. So they're consistently firing off these rallies on top of being a nuisance in the middle and delaying NB1 from grabbing this arc. And like you said, now that the match points per minute are even, really this arc is going to play a big role in finding out who's going to take the initial first lead after this arc is captured. As you can see, there's 4, 5, 6 people trying to capture that arc right now in favor of their alliance, just trying to grab it. And it looks like NB1 was able to do that.
Yes, sir. And good news. We got the bottom bar going on. So the second match happening in parallel is available for us to spectate as well. At least for you guys to keep an eye on the score. This is a live feed from the second match. You see it at the bottom in between my name and Dragothian's, as well as the teams participating on each side That way you guys can keep up with both matches. We're going to try to go into that other match as time goes by to take a look at it. But going back to what we are spectating right here. A crazy brawl opened up here in the center. It starting to slowly and steadily skew in towards the red team's favor. However, there are plenty of marches. Blue marches seem to be cut. There are at least 3 more that I see coming in here with Flacco, Storm Blessed, Tommy, Feel Good, and a few other folks coming in. There's people coming in from all directions, including Narky right here, moving on the map straight towards the Arc Carrier. One of the things that we've talked about the most when it comes to carrying an Arc is how to move it in an efficient way. The Arc of Osiris, on top of it being super heavy, comes with 2 debuffs. You don't only lose a substantial amount of march speed as we crash out of the match. Let's swap back really quickly and keep talking about this, and I'll load up the match in the meantime. It's not only a big boy point build maker, but it also has 2 very, very crucial debuffs. The first one is march speed reduction, and the second one being you take double the damage when you're carrying the Arc. So being an Arc carrier is a huge burden because you are pretty much the target of everybody. They want to stop the Arc from moving, but you also take so much damage that it really is not worth it at all to carry an Arc unless the field is clear. In this case, the field is nowhere near clear.
I don't think there's a spot on this map that's clear. Look at all these armies that are all over the place. I mean, I'm looking at the middle, and obviously the red team has got the Arc at this point and is trying their best to just get this Arc back towards their territory, which they are doing. And it's interesting they're using some infantry armies to bring these back, and I think that just has a lot to do with they just want to be super tanky and just bring it back as much as they can, drop it, grab it, bring it back as much as they can, grab it, drop it, that kind of thing. And with the number of armies in the middle committed from NB1, I'm really curiously surprised to see that no other structures on the red side have dropped in favor of the blue team. I would think because of just the sheer volume. I mean, we're looking at roughly 20 armies or so in the middle here compared to only, 6 or 7 from one NBA. I mean, I'm curious to see where the other armies are at. They should be somewhere, and I'm looking at all these red objectives here, and there are some rallies going, but there are enough NB1 armies just kind of sitting around camping these objectives that are on the NB1 side, and it's just enough to get the job done. I've got a rally coming in here from a Saladin-led rally going in on this desert altar on the NB1 side on the bottom. And there's nothing around it, but there's some armies that are there that can kind of shift, and that's exactly what they're doing right there. So they're coming back to that desert altar. I don't know if NB1's going to be able to necessarily grab this Arc and carry it right away, but at the same time, one NBA doesn't exactly have. It doesn't look like they have the ability to grab these buildings while they're also losing the Arc. That's going to be a problem for them later on.
Yes, sir. And one of the most important things to point out for the viewers is when we talk about a rally counter, what we're looking at is at the bottom right of your screen right here, you can see a 10 right next to this flags logo. That is how many rallies are currently active on the field. And if we take a quick peek, you can see only 2 coming in from NB1 against 8 from 1NB8. So usually this thing kind of happens throughout a match. What this is once the Arc of Osiris opens up, most teams focus up on the Arc and forget a little bit about the buildings. The problem for the folks of 1NB8, the blue team, is that they lost their Shrine of Life at the top to NB1, and they're also losing right now the Arc of Osiris, which is marching its way slowly and steadily with that debuff all the way back to the nearest outpost, which is where it wants to go to claim this Arc. To claim an Arc, all you got to do is to get to one of your team's buildings and you're good to go. But with that being said, the blue team right now have a lead of 800-ish points, but with the Arc being delivered, being a 3,000 point Arc, and the points per minute down by about 80 points per minute, the red team is about to come back into the lead with 35 minutes remaining in the match. Everything is still open. This is by no stretch near done, but it's a very good beginning from NB1, the red team, who started a little bit on the back foot, losing that first desert altar, but came back not only to even things up, but also to take the first Ark of Osiris and to strike back with a Shrine of Life.
Exactly right. And I'm looking at that rally counter you were just talking about. There's actually 3 rallies hitting simultaneously from one NB8. Let's see, one at the Shrine of Life, one at the obelisk on the top side, and another at the Shrine of War. And all 3 just have a swarm of NB1 taking their rally down, effectively just eliminating that rally from doing anything counterproductive to NB1's strategy, which is just keeping their buildings, having a massive flood of folks in the middle, and just having enough to make things happen for their team. I mean, right now, one NBA is starting to realize that the arc is really going to be the strategy of the day for NB1, and now they're starting to commit. It looks like quite a few more troops to the middle a lot earlier on. We're still 7.5 minutes with that arc just being captured by NB1. That's going to be a nice long fight for that second arc. And I got to say, one NBA either has to do one of 2 things. They've got to really start focusing down, and they just did capture a 3rd Sky Altar, by the way. They need to do exactly that. They need to capture a 3rd and a 4th Sky Altar, evening out these point totals and keep them. Or, again, they need to really focus on maintaining their current buildings that they've got, and then also getting this next arc. I'll be interested to see which way they decide to go.
David in the chat asking, where is one NB8's army? And that, my friend, is a fantastic question. One of the things you've noticed right now is that a few of these buildings, the Shrine, the Shrine of Life up on the top, as well as the Sky Altar up on the top side of the map, went back into blue team favor. This was so quick and we couldn't even look at the fight. The reason for that was the buildings weren't being defended. Each building has to be defended with troops within it. Just like your city, just like everything in this game, you have to commit the troops to defend the structure. Unfortunately, it looks like the red team dropped the ball when it comes to the Sky Altar on the top and the Shrine of Life. They did not have enough troops committed in there, potentially because of what happened in the center. And even though we do want to watch each team fighting it out and duking it out for each building, when there is no defense, it's very hard to take a look at things. And you can see YSG holding on to Yi Song-ye holding on to this Sky Altar with a full rally, because nobody was here to defend it. There is 1.5 million troops inside the Sky Altar. And even though there's a nice swarm of NB1 players in here, they might take the Sky Altar back. Look at their health bars and how much they're paying to take a building back, which they should have been defending from the beginning. Unfortunately, the gaming world, we want to show any structure that has anything happening in it. But as you can see in the map, nothing is going on. Nobody's attacking anywhere.
I think that's a visual problem, because we've had battles happening and it didn't blink when it was supposed to be blinking. We really need to pay a little more attention to the rally counter, because I think that's the only way we're going to be able to tell exactly what's happening. It has nothing to do with what we're doing.
That is
the
probably
blinking
a
is
bad
just
idea.
not happening. Yeah. So again, as we said that, they just lost the Shrine of the altar there at the top that we were just looking at. But while they also held that, they went over and took the other desert altar on the bottom. So they still have 3 altars, 2 of which are generating points. And if you look at that points per minute total, 510 versus 290 in favor of one NB8, they did exactly what we said they needed to do, right? They either needed to really posture for that arc and push NB1 right out the middle, which they've kind of started to do. But they also really went after some of these objectives. And although it looks like those 2 Sky Altars are going to go back in favor of NB1, which that last one just did, that stopped those points from generating, which will help one NB8 start to kind of catch up a little bit to that gap that they had because of NB1 capturing that first arc. So if they can continue to do what they're doing and continue to hold that place in the middle, which they started to really pump in some troops into the middle, now that they've positioned themselves. They've gotten themselves secured on their side of the map. Looks like NB1's kind of just starting to bring their armies back out from their base, maybe. That once the arc starts getting closer to around that 1 minute mark, you probably are going to see quite a flood of NB1 folks coming into the middle to start trying to go towards that Ark of Osiris and the temple.
One of the things worth pointing out to our viewers is that if you take a look at marches on the field and you see a march with a sigil right next to it, you can see one right here as an example. This is how you can find rallies on the field. So as you can see, there is an Alexander-led rally by NB1 with this little sigil hitting the desert altar, and there is a counter rally by one NB8 with a Minamoto-led march. So when you're looking at the crazy fight happening, always keep your eye out for a little sigil on the map, and that's how you'll know if there's a rally around or not. This is a small little visual trick we use to figure out which march should be the march we are targeting, which march is the important march on the field. As a rally can contain up to 1.5 million troops, this one single march can contain more troops and do more damage than 5 different marches together. That's about the same amount of troops on the field. And so it's important for you guys to understand better what we're talking about, to keep an eye on the small sigils on the map, just like the one we're seeing on the Saladin on the top sky altar, hitting the Alexander held building.
Exactly, and that was an enhancement that came in right after Arc came out, because that was a direct feedback from the community. We couldn't tell what was a rally and what was just a normal army, especially with all these 50% army expansions running around. It was very difficult to see what was what. Glad they were able to put that in. And looking in the middle, right, as we start to get closer and closer to that minute and a half-ish mark before the next arc spawns, one thing I want to point out, one NBA is doing a fantastic job kind of separating the single armies from the flock. So they're really kind of positioning themselves forward so that it's difficult for NB1 to mass up and just come in one big wave. They're starting to bring their armies up now that it's getting closer to that minute, like I was saying, which is usually around the time where you want to have all your armies in the middle at the arc, kind of pushing forward to grab the arc and bring it back to your respective side. Now NB1's starting to make that mass push now that they've got around 15 armies or so, maybe 12 armies positioned there, which is roughly 3 to 4 players. Well, 3 players, because got some stuff in buildings and things like that. But half of their armies are less than half health. So, and one NB8's looking very strong, especially from a positioning standpoint, and then certainly from a troop standpoint, to possibly take this next arc, which spawns in just over 40 seconds, home with not really a whole lot of stuff behind them to stop them, unless NB1 decides they want to throw a rally over to one of the altars and the shrines of war and then break it on the backside so they can envelop them. That's the only way I can see them getting behind them quickly enough with the positioning that one NB8 has done.
When it comes to a winning Ark of Osiris, all of this open field combat means absolutely nothing, which is why you're seeing a few of these folks from the red team trying to avoid this early fight down here and going around to try to get closer to that Temple of Osiris, which is currently completely dominated by the blue team. Look at Super Shenron making moves on this open field mechanic. Remind you, a march can march anywhere it wants. You can just move freely on the map. So by moving freely on the map, Super Shenron placed himself behind that front line the blue team had, and he is already pounding on the Ark of Osiris carrier. That was a fantastic play because truthfully, all that front line meant nothing now that Shenron made it all the way to that Ark and now is doing damage to the Ark carrier. Thankfully for one NB8 in blue, they noticed it fast enough and they managed to counter that and take that march out quick enough. And now the Ark of Osiris is being carried by blue. Now, another pointer for you guys who aren't seeing where the Ark is on the map right now. This is something that happens more often than not. Believe me, the brawls are nuts in here. And even though there's supposed to be this little emblem right here above the Ark of Osiris carrier, in case you do not see it, on the top right corner, you will see the same exact logo, which says currently neutral. And the moment that turns either red or blue, that's how you know who is currently capturing the arc. You can see it is currently held by the blue team. So even though you might not see the march itself, which we are seeing right now, you can always keep an eye on the top left to figure out who currently owns the arc. And as you can see, it went back to neutral as it was dropped. 1NBA doing a very good job of moving that arc away from the Temple of Osiris in their favor towards their buildings. But the red team is slowly creeping in and is not going to let the blue folks take this arc for free. As you can see, plenty of marches keep coming in. Plenty of marches keep dropping this arc. And the big cluster of fights that's happening here is pretty much up to par with what we see usually, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. And while they're doing that, did exactly what I started looking around to see if they were going to do, which is they're going to take this desert altar down here on the bottom from NB1 as well. They're swarming it. They've got a rally on it. There's a Wu holding strong, but there's so many troops on this on this desert altar. It is getting reinforced properly from NB1, but I think there's just too many troops beating on it along with this rally. They're doing exactly what they need to do, which is position themselves correctly for the arc, really put it on their side, and then also take a building or two while you're at it. Why not, right? Go ahead and get the point differentials going in your favor. And then while also doing that, keep moving that arc, which is what they're doing right now. And now they're in the middle of that clump in the middle, which means it's going to be so difficult to target that arc carrier. And just as they did that, Desert Altar is down, not giving points to the red team on NB1, and that's just going to be a double dagger for them, losing points per minute, and then also having that arc really be on their side. 1NBA is definitely showing some strength here. And there's this little one march that's going to get wrecked here from NB1 trying to bring it back from a Charles-led defense. Charles YSG, that's not going to be good for him.
Yes, sir. One of the things also worth mentioning that those of you who are Ark of Osiris viewer veterans, you know that once someone picks up this Ark of Osiris, most marches target that march specifically. Why? First and foremost, the debuffs of the arc make it a very juicy target because it's going to be super easy to take it out. Secondly, it obviously drops the arc and stops the progress of the team trying to get it in getting it, right? The problem is when you have this big of a clump of marches, once someone picks up the Ark of Osiris, it is so hard to know which march to target that more often than not, you can see that arc carriers try to bury themselves in marches. That way, they're unclickable. A small trick for you guys is attempt to get a click on either the Ark of Osiris logo, as well as just try to figure out, just clicking on the emblems of the commanders, exactly who it is. You'll know you hit the right guy when you start seeing that the name moves and on the same pace as the arc. You can see right now, the blue guy's holding on to it, but not moving an inch. Why? Because the moment he starts moving, he can be targeted. And what he's doing is he's holding on, waiting for more reinforcements to come in before he starts moving out of this cluster of marches. And someone managed to find him, I guess, because he didn't move an inch, but still got dropped.
Yeah, he sure did. And it looks like everybody's starting to really just commit as much as they possibly can while not leaving things completely undefended. 1NB8 is just pouring the troops in from the middle and sides. At the same time, defending a Desert Altar rally here at the top, rally and swarm from NB1, and there's quite a few armies from both teams sitting here trying to hold this thing desperately at 1NB8, and then certainly trying to take it from NB1. I will say I've seen a lot more buildings go in favor of 1NB8 than NB1 this match, and most of them have been altars, not necessarily the shrines. It looks like NB1 has been going for more of the side objectives with the things like that. I haven't really seen anything going on with the Sky Altar on the far left for 1NB8 either. I'm kind of curious why NB1's kind of neglecting that. Not only is that a good one to go after from a point standpoint, but it pulls people away from the center. If you've got armies over there, they're not going to be in the middle, and it's about a 2-minute march at least from that sky altar all the way to the middle. And when you're trying to fight desperately in the middle, stopping that arc from going inch by inch, trying to keep that farther on your side versus their side, those minutes can matter. And with one NB8 really starting to swarm this area with the arc area, and also already having the point lead because of the points per minute differential they were able to secure by capturing those sky altar and desert altars respectively, at least for a minute or so, and stopping the NB1 folks from using those to generate points per minute. I just don't think NB1's going to have enough troops coming up the middle here to get there in time to stop this arc from getting captured. And if that arc captures, we're looking at quite a significant point per minute and points total benefit going in favor of one NB8.
Yes, sir. And the worst part of this whole thing is for NB1, the folks in red, is they haven't been able to hold on to an equal footing in the points per minute game the whole time, just like you mentioned. The folks in blue, the one NB8, have been working hard on taking two of these altars back and forth. We've seen the red team take a Shrine of Life once and take the point per minute lead. But just like we mentioned earlier, those 3,000 points the red team got from the first Ark of Osiris delivery are now obsolete. The points per minute differential between blue and red, currently 150 points per minute more in favor of blue, helped them close this gap. And with 18 minutes remaining in this match, it is becoming very quickly one of those things where there is just not enough time left in the match for a potential comeback. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. There's plenty of time left still in this specific case. But you could reach a situation where the winning team is not holding on to any building, but there isn't enough time left on the clock for the losing team to get that comeback returning. Interesting thing happening here is while 1NB8, the folks in blue, are marching this arc forward, there is a rally going towards this outpost that is supposedly the target where this arc is going to be delivered. Thankfully for the blue team, there are plenty of marches here, so they should be able to hold on to this building. The question is, Dragothian, do you think 1NB8 will deliver this arc right now, or will they start delaying?
Yeah, that was my next thought is, wow, we're getting to the point where this is actually going to be a real strategy that makes a ton of sense with just under 18 minutes left in the match. And we're getting dangerously close to that break-even point where if you capture it now, you're definitely going to have one more arc. And we've seen time and time again the last few weekends doing these Arc of Osiris League casts that, wow, those last arcs coming in big for alliances that were allowed to fight for them and were able to grab them and take them and capture them and win in the last minute or two of the match. If I was one NB8, I would definitely now, especially considering you've got such a stranglehold on all your buildings, you've done a great job stopping them from capturing any of your buildings, so you're not going to lose any per minute, especially if you're able to focus on them. Just take that arc and go hide it somewhere. You've already got the actual lead in the scorecard. And you've also got, a nice sizable chunk of points in your pocket holding that Ark of Osiris. I wouldn't capture it yet. Don't give them the opportunity to get that other chunk of points that they would need to win. Just go ahead and take it, hold it, and then capture it with maybe 4 minutes left, 5 minutes left. That way you're guaranteed there's not going to be another Ark match. You can do it even at the 7-minute mark because it takes that long to get the arc to spawn, but this is definitely that time where holding it and keeping it makes a ton of sense.
And so right now, what is one last thing worth pointing out is as long as this arc isn't delivered, a new arc will not come out. It's a very, very important point to mention because when we talk about delaying an arc, what we mean is so long as this arc stays near an outpost or any building but doesn't get committed, it means that no new arc will spawn. So with 16 minutes remaining, it usually takes about 7 minutes for an arc to come out, to be on the field. And to get it back, if there is no opposition, takes about 3 to 4 minutes. So if the folks in blue manage to hold on to the Ark of Osiris for roughly another 3 to 4 minutes, they can almost guarantee that a new arc will not be part of this match. And that means that right now, the guys in red have a really, really big problem. 3,500 points are available for the blue team with this Ark of Osiris. It is successfully escorted as there are some red marches coming in here. I believe someone panicked a little bit, seeing a little too many red armies, and decided to commit the Ark and gain the points. And that's how the blue team came back into the lead. And as you can see, the timer is going down, and there is still time to deliver this Ark, which means that 1NB8 are gonna have to really, really work to make sure that this last Ark is not influential. Right now, Dragothian, if this Ark comes out instantly at this point in time, the folks in red are gonna take the 4,000 points and win this match by a very, very slight margin. And one last thing, the other match, we're looking at the bottom area. NB2 are in the lead. NB2 are in the lead with almost 6,000 point lead. They've picked up 2 Arks of Osiris so far. They've been doing their best to maintain the point per minute game. But folks, as you can see, that match is a little bit less close than this one. But there's still 14 minutes remaining and plenty of time for IKM to make a comeback.
Yeah, both of these matches are still very much into it. And I'm really just scratching my head on that play that 1NB8 did. That they've been playing flawlessly all match, and then to capture that just kind of makes, literally, I just scratched my head. I just scratched my head because they're down an altar, so now their points per minute total is not where they want it to be. They just did capture an obelisk, which is great, but are you going to port your cities forward? I mean, is that the plan? I don't know if that's necessarily the play to make. So now you're down 130 points per minute. You just captured the Ark, and now there's another one that's going to be popping up here in about 6 minutes, 20 seconds. That's plenty of time for NB1 to go ahead and keep this points per minute game, flood folks into the middle, and just own that Ark area like they did the first one. And then that early capture becomes a big, big mistake. And right now, the steps for that to become a big, big mistake have already started to happen with losing that points per minute even playing field. And I just don't understand that play. Look at the middle. NB1 has secured the middle. They have floods of armies coming in. They know exactly what they need to do. They should have 1NB8 should have taken that Ark and parked it up at the very top outpost and just left it there. They shouldn't have even done anything. They should have just kept it until that 8-minute mark and then capped it, and there would have been no chance
You
for
never know.
NB1 to come back.
Of course, you never know what goes on in people's minds. This might be a point in time where the folks of 1NBA will go back and smack themselves in the head for it, or it might have been the play. You never know exactly what's going to happen here. 1NBA are also starting to show up in the center. They don't own the Temple of Osiris as much as NB1 do. But for them, they don't need the Ark right now. All they need is to delay the capture by the other team. The problem is they're gonna need to delay it by a good 8 minutes. It is not impossible. We've seen Ark fights last much longer than that. But what is possible is to gain a 4,000 point difference in points per minute. And if not the full 4,000 points, which is currently less, the lead by blue team is slowly dwindling down. With 11 minutes remaining, all they need to do right now is to not let this Ark happen and continually do what they're doing. But the problem is NB1, the red team, realized that pretty much if they grab this Ark and take it, they will be victorious unless something happens in the points per minute game right now. Remember, this Ark is the third Ark of Osiris. As we mentioned, the first one is 3,000 points, the second one is 3,500 points, and the third one and last one of this match is going to be worth 4,000 total points. So the blue team has one of two options right now. Their first option is to gain enough points so that this Ark is irrelevant. The second option is not to let the Ark get carried. And a hidden option number 3, which seems very unlikely now, is to take the Ark for themselves. And as we crash out of one match, we're going to take a quick peek at the other match as we reload back in, because that match 2 is going down to an Ark of Osiris and madness happening on the field, because whoever grabs this Ark will probably be victorious, just like in our match. Boy, oh boy, Dragothian, these matches are getting tight.
Mm, so tight. And I will say that, looking at this IKM match too, I mean, you've got IKM and Newbie 2 fighting here. The red team definitely having the big points per minute in favor of them, even though they're down. That's definitely going to help over 10 minutes left. That will be 5,900 points versus 3,600 points. You're looking at about a 2,300 point difference. So, very, very good amount of points right there. And then capturing that arc too, if they're able to do it, absolutely will work in favor of the red team. I know that a lot of folks have their coins betting on Newbie 2 to be the easy favorite, but IKM is definitely making it interesting in the middle. And while I'm still looking at the other match with with one NB8 and NB1,
We're going right
this
back there
middle,
right now.
yeah, I was gonna say this middle is looking like the Red Sea. I mean, it is nothing but red armies everywhere, swarming anything that comes close to it that has the color of blue. And this is where I started scratching my head. I just didn't understand their play. Somebody in the chat was asking, well, they just have to stop them from doing it. Well, good luck throwing something in the middle of this golden death trap that NB1 has set up around this Temple of Osiris, because anything you throw this direction is going to get swarmed down into nothingness and evaporated into thin air. You see nothing but sad faces going back from the blue team, just one after the other going back because they're not massed up in one ball like they should be. I'm looking around the backside, and I do see quite a few blue team members coming around, but NB1 looks like they're ready for that too. You've got a bunch of different armies, Super Shenron on the bottom, her manly Nico, also sitting right there watching some blue armies going by. And then the top side, NB1 is still filtering in more armies. So, I mean, this is the ball game right here. And you're going to have roughly a 7-minute window where NB1 can win the match for themselves. It's going to be tight, though, because now they've also lost one of their altars, which I do see that on the bottom side. That Sky Altar is now in favor of one NB8 and has only a minute before it captures. And I don't see any red team members coming except for maybe one to take that back. So that might not even be enough to get the win for NB1. They may still not have enough because of the point differential per minute, which is definitely good for one NB8, but why even put yourself through that? Just keep the arc for another 3 or 4 minutes, and then you had the match won. Didn't even have to do it.
And so slowly and steadily, mistakes do happen, but the folks of NB1 are not really paying attention to everything. By realizing they need this arc to win, they've poured everything into the battlefield onto the center. But the problem is 1NB8 had enough of a lead thanks to that previous arc and thanks to them being able to hold on to the points per minute game for the majority of the time, that they didn't have the same issue NB1 the red team had. The red team could not hold on to the points per minute, and so the first arc of Osiris they picked up got destroyed very quickly. That those 3,000 points went away very quickly by the points per minute. But now the folks of 1NB8 who are continually doing this, the 3,500 points they won from their last arc is actually putting them at over 4,000 points worth of a lead, which means that even if this arc is carried, and it is being carried very, very, very fast, there's still going to have to be extra points coming in for the folks of the red team NB1 for them to be victorious. Now, this arc is marching super fast. I'm trying to take a look. It has a 52-second window, and then it is going to get delivered. I believe that NB1... I believe that NB1... Is it the right march? Yes, it is. 42 seconds, and this is making it not to the outpost. It's not aimed all the way at the outpost. It's aimed about halfway through. So there's still time for someone to come in here and try to just stop this from moving. But even though this is going to get delivered, blue team will have 200 points, a 200-point lead. They lead the point per minute game by 300 points, which means in 5 minutes they'll gain another 1,500 points. And even though we've been focused so badly on this arc, it still not might be enough for 1NB8. And the worst part is they might not have enough time to go back to their city, use these marches for rallies, to take buildings. And so yes, the red team made the correct play, which is fill the center. But right now the arc is standing still, and there shouldn't be enough time for them to really mount a counteroffensive for the points per minute game. And so NB1, the biggest alliance of Kingdom 103, one of 3 alliances fighting for a spot in the final 4, might find itself outside of the arc. Look at Oleg coming around. Oleg is here just to try to stop things, and Michelle is going close to the arc, to the outpost as well. Uh-oh, if Oleg can just stop this arc from moving.
Oh, my.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you can just, wow, look at this. So, again, I mean, you're looking at all these players, and I think, again, they're starting to realize, you started seeing waves of red team players just peel off towards their cities, knowing that with 4.5 minutes left, they're going to have to start sending rallies right now and in a big way. And unfortunately for them, they've also got a Sky Altar on the top side being heavily rallied and swarmed by one NB8. They're going to lose that Sky Altar. That means there's another 150 points per minute that's going to be gone for them. I think this is really a done deal, unfortunately. I know that, players like, Michelle and Super Shenron and all those are very solid players on NB1 that have been doing like crazy amounts of battles and damage and organizing all this stuff. But NB8, even with that little bit of the arc snafu in the middle earlier, about 15 minutes ago, really showing some serious strategy and knowing when to send rallies and when to kind of hold your own side and really just kind of weather the storm. You saw where NB1 was sending 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rallies at a time, and NB1 noticed, or one NB8 noticed that, and was able to really just kind of bunker down and just, okay, we'll take it right now. And then at the same time, we're going to go ahead and reinforce the middle with all of our extra troops that we don't need to necessarily use to defend these structures and take the position advantage. And I'm just looking at the chat too, Gecko, and everybody is losing their...
Oh my god. Sorry, Dragothian. Oh my god. Sorry, Dragothian. I apologize. This Sky Altar was going so slow, and these marches were creeping in. A march made it in. It was just not enough. I didn't want to cut you off, but I'm here like yelling with a muted mic like, oh my god. I hope you guys managed to see that. As Dragothian was casting, this Sky Altar held for so long. 1NB8 barely picked it up at the end. Marches almost made it in. That was the play. That was it right there. I muted the mic. I didn't want to interrupt Dragothian, but I was screaming. This arc, the Sky Altar barely moved in health. It just barely at the end managed to go in for a favor of 1NB8. And Dragothian, there is not enough time for NB1 to take this building back and gain points from it. There are 1,200 points in favor of 1NB8. I am hoping and praying for the folks of NB1 that they have some sort of provisions out there to try to get them back into this. But at this point, points per minute game is over. Anyone who takes an enemy building, that was the last building I believe that will lock in favor of red. Correct. That's it. Right now, all you'll see is the point per minute game go down, not up, which means that in the next 2 minutes, there are 180 points in the favor of blue team. And unless NB1 manages to stop that as soon as possible, this could be it. Oh my god, that Sky Altar, chat, how many of you guys got to see that? Because I am shaking.
Yeah, it was a great defense, and then at the end of the day, they just didn't have enough troops there. And at the very end, right as that sliver was going down, and you had that army coming into that Sky Altar, they were able to take it and effectively eliminate that building from the battlefield. I don't know why NB1 took all that time to get that building back. It will do exactly 0 things for them. So they should have been taking all those armies and sending them down to the blue side so they can get some of those buildings and stopping them from generating points. But I think at this point, it's basically a 1,500 point game with another 180 points per minute going in favor of the blue team. This just is a little too late. I think we're going to have to start calling for some GGs in the chat.
Yes, sir. Before we start the GGs, let's answer a quick question by Vignesh asking, how do you get 10,000 individual points as a free-to-play in ARC? The beauty of Ark of Osiris is the more troops you have, the more likely you are to make those 10,000 points. The way you will get your points is by filling buildings and holding rallies, filling rallies, fighting on the open field, getting your provisions in. The best way to get individual points is by being part of rallies as well as being part of defensive buildings. So it doesn't matter if you're a free-to-play player or not. What matters is how many troops can you commit towards rallies and buildings, and the more of those you have, the better. And I want to see a massive GG in the chat by you folks, because truly, this was an unbelievable match, and the underdog, the third alliance of Kingdom 103, it doesn't mean they're a bad alliance, clearly, have beaten number 1 in terms of size, and NB2 have beaten IKM. So the folks of 103 are going to have 2 representatives out of the 4 in the final 4. Let's go take a quick peek at the final results. Dragothian, what can you see here? I'm speechless right now.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, if we're talking about some things, right? Obviously, the Ark didn't really make the biggest difference. I think, honestly, the occupation score did. Total kills go definitely in favor to NB1. Huge units healed in favor of 1NB8 versus Newbie 1. Obviously, being that biggest alliance in Kingdom 103, that means they've got so many troops they don't necessarily need to heal. So I don't think that's necessarily telling of Newbie 1 not really going for anything. But at the same time, man, we saw it. We saw it live. We saw it the whole time. You saw Newbie just being that 1NB8 alliance from 103, just being a little extra half step ahead of their Newbie 1 counterpart. And yeah, I think looking at the provision score too, even, you got about a 1,400 point-ish delta there in favor of the blue, which definitely contributed towards that 2,100 point victory. That's not too bad at all. I think that overall, just looking at with the eye test, 1NB8 really kind of just had that extra half step that we all look for whenever we're looking for the elite in this Osiris League playoff match.
With one slip up exception, which made this much closer than it should have been. The one thing that is truly impressive about 1NB8, in my opinion, is their ability to adapt and to fix, not necessarily to fix, but to overcome mistakes. The fact that they recognized, boy, we made a big boy mistake right there, or a big girl mistake right there, and by delivering that arc, and realized that they need to capitalize on those points per minute, they instantly adapted and changed, and they instantly realized where is the next point for them to win, and they did it. Not every team is capable of this. Not every team had the opportunity to have to adapt mid-game, and big shout out to both teams, NB1 and 1NB8. They've showed massive tenacity throughout this tournament, but 1NB8 always showing up just a little bit more when it comes to adapting mid-game, having a backup plan, a backup plan, and a backup plan. It seems that 15 million units healed might be a huge problem next match, because really, how many healing speed ups do they have remaining?
I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to think about it. And knowing the history of these alliances in this kingdom, I will say they didn't have necessarily to use as many as some of the other kingdoms out there in KBK. So probably wouldn't hurt them too bad. But still, I mean, these are big time healing totals that we're looking at. So, just all around kudos to both teams. Heck of a match. Between two really powerful alliances. Good game and well played to both teams. Great victory to 1NB8 as they move on to the final 4 alliances remaining in this playoff. I can't be more excited to see what they're going to do in the rest of this tournament. And, NB1's going home, but they definitely fought well, obviously losing to their brother-sister alliance, whatever you want to call it. And, yeah, just a great match. This is going to be another great weekend, I can already tell, of matches to come.
Yes, sir, and we will be here next time 15 minutes ahead of time. That was completely my mistake. Daylight savings hit in the EU, and my times kind of got screwed up, but we won't make that same mistake twice. What's really interesting to point out is 2 out of 4 teams are from 103. What a crazy thing. And on top of that, we got 2 more matches remaining today, which we will be casting both, of course, so you definitely don't want to miss out on that one. One final thought here from me, and I see the chat going quite a bit about it. Provisions has been really a huge key in here, and I cannot disagree at all. Because we've been talking about this more and more, how provisions are very underplayed at the top tier. And it looks like by just having these extra 1,400 points, that gave them that extra oomph that they needed to overcome the extra, 400, 500 points they needed from this arc right here that was delivered. If you look at occupation score and you sum up occupation score with the Arc of Osiris score, you'll see that the difference between these teams is super, super small, and the majority of the lead came from provision score. So that's a fantastic play by 1NBA. Dragothian, any final thoughts from you?
Man, I think I just said it. It's just a really good match. I love these matches as we get down to the wire and start to go to crown our first ever Season 1 Osiris League champion. These teams are amazing. The strategies are intense. And wow, just the battles in general are really fun to watch. I can't wait to see what the next ones happen, how the next ones happen and play out in the next few hours.
Yes, sir. Dragothian, thank you very much. I'll see you in less than 4 hours-ish? We have 5 hours-ish until the next match. We will definitely be here. Both of us are going to be here we'll be ready to rumble, really, and see that match happening. We will not go back to the studio because the lights are off, the camera is off, everything's off. I literally got out of bed and ran to start casting, and so we're just going to go back to the final screen. Thank you guys for spectating this, and I apologize again. This is on me. This cast was brought to you by the content creators of Rise of Kingdoms and Lilith Gaming. All of our links are in the description down below, so make sure. You know what? Apologies. I like this. Ryu, thank you. Ryu calling out in the chat before we finish it out. Gecko not showing NB2 against IKM stats. I'll bite, Ryu. Let's go take a quick peek at that, Dragothian. I don't know if you can see it or not, but we're taking a quick peek also. This wasn't planned at all. But again, we take your feedback very, very seriously. Let's go take a quick peek very quickly at the scores on the other side. It'll pop up on your screen in a moment, Dragothian, and we can kind of take a look at this. But again, from what I see, NB2 just taking arcs all over the place, while IKM won the occupation and provision score, but it just wasn't enough. So there you have it, folks. You guys asked for the stats for IKM and NB2, and so here they are. Can we see anything interesting out of this, Dragothian?
Yeah, I think this is just if you're looking at all the numbers on both sides here, the kills are even, the healed units are even, kind of even, teleports are pretty even. Obviously, the biggest difference point-wise is that arc. So this is one of those really cut and dry matches, it seems like, where whoever captured the arc was the winner. That probably means that there wasn't a whole lot of building swaps going on for the most part, or if there were, they were happening on both sides simultaneously. So there wasn't really, looking at about an 1,800 point difference in favor of IKM for occupation score. So, that's probably what about was going to happen. So that those 2 arcs that Newbie 2 captured were obviously the critical component in their victory there. Just looking at these teams here and making me cry just a little bit more as IKM losing. They're my 3rd of 4 selection to win this whole match in the Destiny event. So now I'm down to one selection that I picked, and it wasn't even part of my first 3. And I know that a lot of you out there are probably also kind of scratching your heads and wondering how much more domination can Kingdom 103 put out there with having Newbie 2 and 1NB8 in the final 4 alliances for this Osiris League playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yes, sir. I had NB1 as one of my selections as well, and I only have 2 of them. The other one being my home alliance, JWM, and so they're the last resort for me to win the Eye of the Talent event. So hopefully we'll still clutch a win out of this. Dragotian, my friend, thank you very, very much for being here. I'll see you in the next cast. Chat, thank you guys for being awesome. Thank you guys for keeping us honest and asking questions. We will do our best to not only keep an eye on chat and answer what we can, but also, improve this cast as time goes by. We'll see you guys sooner rather than later. Enjoy your rest of your day and come back for the next match as we cast JWM against DSP. And later today, we will have White Tigers against OV, the Overlord. So you definitely don't want to miss that one out. We'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care. Have a good one.